Hi, this is Colette from Soul Life Loving. Just a quick message to talk about intentions and how they manifest. Because it's been mentioned, this word hope has come up again. Now, I'm not a great lover of the word hope because it either puts you in the past or it puts you in the future, and you're never in the present. So nothing's happening. It's just like a wish thing, fulfillment thing. But if you're not doing anything about it and you get stuck in your not very satisfactory life and hope, you don't get anywhere because it destabilizes your presence, your present, your presence in your present. And it takes energy because your thoughts are all in there and they're not real. And it takes energy from your intention to manifest something. And your intention has to be specific. It can't be a dream world of all of whatever. It has to be something that you intend to happen. And spirit knows the difference between a la dream and an intention. I'm really not. Every time I hear the word, it makes me cringe because I think they'll just be living in that bubble of hope and going day to day, and nothing will be changing. They'll just live in that because you can't have both. You can't do both. You can look at your awful life and think, I'm going to change this, and set an intention to do that, and then be open to all the suggestions that come in, because there's loads. Once you make that intention, loads of information comes in. But if you're in your hope bubble, you don't hear them because it's not resonating with you, with it. It's bouncing off it. Not a great lover, as you can tell. So back to the intentions. So 26 years ago, I was watching a gardening program, and it was about the older generations gardens which had been their beloveds, but now they're pensioners and they can't physically upkeep their garden, and they can't afford to pay anybody to come in and upkeep the garden. And the pre-planning that went in with some people to make raised beds and better paths, just in case, but they don't want to be walking on anything wobbly because they'll be unstable themselves. So they've made it so that they can access it and make it look beautiful, and they can reach it. So raised beds and flat paths and water trickling and things that they can manage. And then there's the other people who have adapted their homes in a different way than that, and other people that have made new homes, and they've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And so the two videos that stuck in my mind was one where she had a nice big house. She'd had one child. A child had grown and moved on. A husband had passed. And she wanted to sell, but she'd made a formal garden and a wild garden, and she had about an acre of land. And she worked really hard. It's gorgeous, really, really was. But things had changed. She had to sell the building, but she didn't want to move anywhere else because her heart was in her garden, and she didn't want to let go of it. So what she did was, the half an acre that was formal, she had that fenced off. Excuse me, a hair's just dropped down through my glasses and landed on my eyelash. It might need cleaning. Anyway, and then the other half an acre, she'd had a cottage, a little cottage, and it's part brick and part wood, and it had a pitched roof, and it had a living garden on it. I might have to start saving. If I live long enough, I'm going to have one on here. You could hardly hear the rain. It was just a single story. No steps when you're that age. You can hardly hear the rain on a living garden roof. Mine hammers that hard. I had to put my headphones in to block it out. But you could hear the rain, but nothing like it hammers onto my shed roof. And so that stuck. And in her half an acre, which was the wild garden, she introduced more trees because, as she said, I want to have a cottage in the woods. And the fencing between the two buildings was really high. I think it was something like 10 foot. But I think eventually from the other side, what they would have seen would have been the trees. I'm sure they would have painted the fencing. But she didn't want them to know that she was there. And I'm sure they didn't want to know that she was there. So it was a brilliant idea. Brilliant. And she planted a copse with walk rounds so she could have nice little toddles through the woodland and a wild garden. Because at the end of the day, that was her true heart. And I thought, wow, that's gorgeous. I'd love a cottage in the woods. I'd like to make my own cottage and grow my own wood. That would be fantastic. And then the next one that came on, she was in her 80s. She had a bungalow, which is like a single story building. And it was at the bottom, and it was like a hill, but they'd had it all terraced, or I think her husband had passed by then, but it was all terraced, and she showed photographs of it. It was stunning, and it was just bright and interesting, and all the little nooks and crannies of the dry walls that she'd built grew things, all sorts of things. A whole line of a line of wall that just grew strawberries, little alpine strawberries for her. It was just stunning. It looked, and I thought, oh, loads of hard work, but she couldn't do that. But she did have a shed at the top of the garden, and she'd had a bed moved in there and an electric blanket, and she had a view through the door, and she had a flask and her books and a journal that she would draw in. It was, and I want to be her as well. So I want to be that woman with the electric blanket looking out at her garden and only going in at night to sleep. And so she'd made it like that, and I thought, I want that. So that was my intention. I wanted the cottage in the woods with the self-made woods, and I wanted to be in there during the day and only go in at night to sleep. And I wanted an electric blanket, that's what I want. And those images stayed with me forever, and they're still here. They're still here. And what I've got is I call it my shed, but it's a studio, and it's beautiful. I love it. It's got all my artwork in it. I can do what I want in it. I've got a massive sofa that has reclining seats if I want. And I've spent all winter in there with this electric heater, just switching on and off, because modern heaters just, they get a temperature, they go off, then they come on, and you just stay warm on the electric blanket. And I've been really, really comfy. It's a really long sofa, so I fit on it, and I fit on it, and somebody else can even sit on the other end. And I'm all set up. I've got all my work with me, all my scrying stuff and my cards and my art. And I get to look out the garden, and my trees are going to, because now they're in the ground, they're going to love it. And they're going to start maturing and growing. The shrubs are going to grow. And then there's going to be a little me. So the idea is that it will keep off the wind from me a little. It won't let as much light. And I've got massive 100-year-old trees around me. So the sunlight only comes and filters through. But I like my trees, and I like that being in a wood thing. I love being in woods. I find a lot of peace in woods, and I get a lot of energy. Trees are very generous, and I get a lot of energy off them. And I love it's almost like the birds are amplified and all the other noises are quieted down. You can't hear the outside world, you just hear what's inside. And so this is what I've got, and that's what an intention is, because now it's manifested. And it might be 30 odd years later, but it doesn't matter to me, because I couldn't have had this anywhere else. And when I took this garden on, and it is a huge garden, it was in such a mess that for years all I've done is let the leaf fall land on and just chuck fish blood and bone meal down every year before the leaves fall, and so that I just keep feeding the ground. So somewhere along the line I thought, if I get this cottage in the wood with a sofa and an electric blanket and all my other stuff, and the ground will be in a good condition. So it's had nothing done to it other than clearing out the tons and tons of rubbish and all the fencing that's gone in around it, a lot of which is because the walls aren't very stable. So this is giving it stability, and I'm thrilled with it. And on that note, please don't live in a bubble of hope where all the help and good ideas and spirit-led devotion bounces off it. Set an intention of what you want to achieve and slowly but surely chip away at it. Because sometimes you can't have it all at once. You can't have this change all at once. Somebody's not going to come in and rescue you and give you everything you want from your bubble all at once. You've got to make it happen yourself. You've got to be your own hero. So thank you for listening, as always. Bye.